Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel is Finding Value. Today we're going to do our commodity technical analysis update. We'll look at all of the different sectors and different areas in commodities that I normally follow, which is usually precious metals, energy, and some other things as well, maybe some metals, base metals and stuff. We'll take a look at it. I'll give you my financial opinion on what's going on, and we'll go from there. So here is the DXY, the dollar. The dollar is weakening a little bit. Let's go to the dailies. It's weakening a little bit, but that is a bloody nose, which means that we could still see strength in the dollar. It is still looking very strong. We're seeing strong rotation of money in the markets. Commodities and overall markets are selling off. And we're still have the recessionary fears in this market. I think that we are entering a wave 2. So wave 1 is complete. Wave 2 is what we're in Elliott wave for commodities. I'll show you what I mean by that. And the dollar is strengthening at this current time, much like it did in the mid-2000s. The 10-year yield is pulling back a little bit. There we are, down 1.1%. We've pulled back. And the 10-year yield, I think, will continue to pull back if those inflationary fears remain in the system. So I do think that we could potentially pull back, and we could see a washout in a lot of equities and even potentially commodities coming up here. I am not selling my shares. I'm going to accumulate cash, and I will buy the bottom wherever that is. I'm not trying to time this thing. I know it's of good value in commodities, and I know that we could potentially have a further pullback, but I'm not selling out and losing my position. I think that we are in a bull market, that we're having a small cyclical pullback, which it could be big for some people, depending on what their viewpoint is. And we could see a further pullback in interest rates. What I'm seeing is kind of a shoulder, head, shoulder, where it could potentially pull back. Sometimes this dekes people out. Deke is, it fools people into thinking that this will happen, and it actually reverses and heads higher. So I'm not trading in and out. I'm establishing more cash position at this time and waiting for a bottom in some of these companies. Looking at the CRB index, it is coming down. I still think that we could potentially head lower. These are large selling pressure days in here and smaller up movements. But I do think at some point we will contract in our candlestick sizes and start to turn around, and that's when I'm going to get aggressive in adding to positions. Gold pulling on back some. We are heading lower. This is a recessionary fear in the markets, and we could pull back further here to the downside. There is a boatload of support at this level down at like little under $1,300. I know that sounds extreme, but I think that this is going to be a pullback coming up here where we could potentially pull back to 1,400 or something like that. That is a possibility. Looking at silver, silver's pulling on back. We have a boatload of support right basically where it is now, 1890. We're getting right down to about 18 something dollars. The support's there. Doesn't mean that it will stop there. We may go a little bit lower. We could even test this $14 support level if it gets enough momentum. Now, this isn't the time, in my opinion, to be afraid. This is the time to think about how bullish you want to get. That's my opinion. So I've been thinking about how bullish I want to get and what I want to buy. And I'm going to wait and see where we end up. Platinum is also pulling back. This does look like we've got some selling pressure. Now, the cost curves in platinum are basically where we keep bottoming out at, $786, $800, somewhere in that range. We can dip below it, but I don't think we can stay there for super long. So if we get another buying opportunity, in my opinion, coming up here, which we're in, and I would be a buyer even at the bottom here, this looks good for platinum. It looks bad in terms of potential lower prices. It looks good to buy this, what I consider to be a gift. XAU to gold ratio is still going lower. It was down 1.33%. We have not broken this downtrend in the XAU to gold ratio. That means that this hasn't really turned on yet. we could see further downside in our gold and silver equities. Again, I would be waiting for potential bottom and a turn. Crude oil getting slammed today. This is our first wave higher. We're getting a pullback. We've got large down days. If I can draw the circles correctly, and smaller up days. That still, to me, looks like we could potentially go lower. We do have some support in this general vicinity. We'll see if we can break that general vicinity to the downside. I think it is possible to break to the downside and head lower here in the short term. Why do I think that? Because we got big down candlesticks and lots of recessionary fears in this market. Doesn't matter if the recessionary fears are real or not, it is having an impact. I'm not selling out of any of my shares. I am waiting for when this will turn around, and I will add into my positions because I don't want to lose my position if I know we're in the middle of a bull market and we could go much, much higher. At least that's my opinion on it. Natural gas heading a little bit lower. I think we're going to do some bouncing around here. I'd really like to get down to this area down here. I'm going to be aggressive on my moves down there if we get down there. I'm not selling my position, but I'm accumulating cash at this point to hopefully pull back to that level. And to me, just by looking at how this is moving, I think we will get down somewhere in this vicinity. At least that's what I hope. XOP, yeah, you know me, heading lower, 2.37% on it. And I do think that we could potentially head a little bit lower in this if we see the price of crude oil and natural gas head lower. I'm going to head back real quick. I forgot to go over GDX. GDX heading lower today as well. Kind of skipped over that. Big picture view, we are still heading lower here. We're looking for a bottom. There's support in the 25-ish all the way down to 21 to 25-ish range. There's a big band of support. SILJ is also heading lower. We're at support. We're starting to basically play with that support line and see if we can break to the downside. Another support line under 874 is where we're at, is $7.18-ish. Somewhere in that range is a long-term support level. If we get down to that level, that would be a great time to be looking to accumulate, in my opinion, for myself. Not advice. Energy service companies also pulling back. We're on the long-term support line, and that's where we're at. We're on the long-term white support line that I drew in there. Looking at the big picture, we have not broken out of this downtrend yet. We have to break out and move to the upside. Looking at uranium, UX, this is uranium futures. I do think this could potentially pull back. Remember the fractals I always talk about. The fractal that I'm talking about is this guy here, and then we get a move like that, somewhere in this general vicinity. It's going to scare people out. It's going to scare all the retail people out, and that's when you should be doing the opposite of everyone else. At least that's what I'm going to be doing. Looking at the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, again, we've got that fractal I always see, and then we usually see a correction like that. It will probably correct somewhere down to here, create another really good buying opportunity, and I will have money, hopefully by that time, saved up and ready to deploy. As I'm not selling out and I am riding. Now, URNM had a small down day today. It doesn't look too bad. It looks like we're trying to hold on here. But again, we've got some selling pressure in the overall markets. The fractal here does look like it could end at any second, but we'll see what happens. Again, I don't like playing the short-term stuff, and it doesn't look too bad down in this vicinity. It's not large down days, and the up days are also small. So we are basically contracting to a point, and you could throw a pattern in here. You could say that we are contracting down into a corner here, something on the lines of that, and that we could potentially break either lower or higher. Usually on a descending or falling wedge, we break higher, but given the market conditions, I'm going to wait and not hold my breath on that because if the recessionary fears are still out there, and depending on what materializes, we could see a little bit lower move. Coming on down, we're TAN, the solar, it's selling back off. There we are right there. But again, I think this has more time to accumulate. I'm not accumulating anything in solar, guys. I'll be honest. I'm just going over it to show you what could potentially happen. We could head a little bit lower with the overall markets, but it is going in a sideways pattern, much like this guy over on this left-hand side over here. Going to copper, COPX, we are heading lower in copper. There's the 1 year heading lower. HG1 is signaling, this is copper itself, that people are afraid and that a recession could potentially be coming. Copper is diving down quite dramatically. To me, it does look like that is going to be the case. With this going down, we've got the 10-year yield going down with us. And with the potential kind of topping pattern, we could see further downside right in front of us. Up to you on what you want to do. I'm going to ride through it, and I'm going to accumulate cash with what I am at work. CRB to S&P 500, it does look like we're putting in a more of a topping pattern in the short term, where we could potentially head lower. But this is a ratio, and I also think the S&P 500 could head lower. So this is going to be a difficult one to find out, but we could head lower in a lot of these ratios, which would be disinflationary type thought in the markets. Looking at the gold to oil ratio, we could potentially come back to a 20 ratio perhaps. We got to a low of about 14, 15. So we could come back up and then do a retest and a move lower. Lithium, no update there, moving sideways. Looks like we're breaking to the downside for the rare earth strategic metals to the downside. This here definitely looks like we are breaking to the downside where we're going to have a washout. So to me, it's looking quite bearish. Lithium also looking a little bit bearish today. The pattern doesn't look as bad as the others, but this probably has more downside in it. The S&P 500 was selling off today. The U.S. Composite Index was also selling off, but this is a broken down trend. So we'll see what happens here coming up. A lot of these, again, we could have false breakdowns to the downside. I'm not selling out of anything. I'm just going to hold through it. I keep saying that because a lot of people sell in and out when I was a new investor. I'm not selling out this time. I'm riding the bull market, and I'll accumulate on the dips. So why I keep saying that is because I'm talking about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Looking at XHB, basically flat today, right on the resistance line, trying to break through that. Lumber getting sold off a teeny bit, still looks pretty good though. Looking at palladium, sold off, getting a little bit of selling pressure there. We've got copper selling off quite dramatically. This is Dr. Copper. This is telling us that a recession is more probable as this goes down. And then coming down, aluminum heading a little bit lower. We've got the Baltic Dry Index basically flat. This looks like it's trying to flatten out here. That's a little green day, which is a week right there. So that's looking a little bit better. But that's what I've got for today, guys. That is the overall commodity market. We have weakness in the market right now in the short term. And I know people, they want to sell out, try to time this stuff. I'm not doing that. I think that we are in a bull market, a secular bull market with cyclical pullbacks, and we're experiencing a cyclical pullback in this bigger bull market in general. Money's rotating around. People are getting afraid from a recession. We very well could come into some pretty heavy selling pressure in the overall stock market and like the S&P 500. It's going to put pressure on commodities, I think, in the short term, and things could pull back here. That's exactly what's happening. Now, when is this thing going to turn around? That's difficult to say. I think it could last for a little bit longer. We could go sideways too. It doesn't mean that we have to necessarily go down. So that's what we've got in the markets right now, and that's what I'm seeing. If you guys like this analysis, give me a thumbs up. If you guys want further analysis on other things of what I think I might be buying at the bottom of this pullback, you can join the website. It's in the description link below. The Platinum membership gets you all that information. But that's what I've got for today. We'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.